Hey, what's up guys, it's Renaldo here. So this video is going to focus on the Expropriation Act and how things have played out exactly the way that alternative media in this country have said it was going to play out, whilst mainstream media and the Democratic Alliance, specifically Minister Dean McPherson, who's in charge of implementing the Expropriation Act, downplayed all of it and said, nah, you guys are just crazy, you are fear-mongering, you don't understand the act, you are trying to manipulate what is happening and you are playing into Donald Trump's hands, right? And I can illustrate this by just using a few examples of opinion pieces and articles that were written by specifically News 24, but also other mainstream media outlets. Let's have a look. Alright, first take. The Expropriation Act needs amending, but it's not a license for land grabs, says Pieter de Tooy on behalf of News 24 on the 3rd of February. Please tell me more, Pieter de Tooy, considering you know everything about the ANC. The purpose of the Expropriation Act and the sections that govern it is not to grab property, writes Pieter de Tooy. How would you know, by the way? Are you insider in the ANC? Do you know what the intentions with this act is? Because the act states that property can be taken for null compensation. So I'm confused as to how you can make this claim when you're not in the ANC and you don't know what the intentions is. But I'm not going to read the rest. You can. I'm just giving you examples of where they clearly contradict themselves. And like I said, this is just some of the examples. There are many examples of opinion pieces and articles written by mainstream media in which they rubbish alternative media and podcasters and say, oh, they're fear-mongering, they don't know what they're doing, they're just trying to get views. Here's another one. Adrian Basson, Trump, the liar, has touched South Africa on our studio. Okay. US President Donald Trump will soon realize that South Africans don't like people spreading lies about us. Here we still deal with facts. Oh, do we now? Apartheid is to blame for everything that's wrong in this country, but hey, we deal in facts. Let's ignore the ANC with 33 trillion rand over the last 31 years to improve South Africa, but hey, everything is still apartheid's fault. In only a few hours, Trump has achieved precisely the opposite of what he set out to do, which was to pit white South Africans, farmers in particular, against the black majority. That wasn't his intention, but anyway. They go on here. The ANC, DA, and even Solidarity agreed that South Africa is not confiscating land in reaction to Trump's latest flexing of his newfound powers. But he is, though, in the sense that South Africa is doing that. So another opinion piece here, and then Pieter de Tooy hits again. How Afriforum pulled South Africa into Trump's maelstrom of irrationality and extortion. Here they are showing that Afriforum and Solidariteit and podcasters are creating false narratives that isn't actually true. Another one that says debunk. How much land has South Africa expropriated without compensation since 94? No, South Africa is not currently confiscating land despite claims from US President Donald Trump. It says here there are no records of expropriation without compensation by South Africa's democratic government, and the recently signed expropriation bill includes safeguards even under its null compensation clause. Oh, okay. That's strange then. Yeah, you've reported on Driefontein, the vacant Boksburg plot, stoking fresh fears about land expropriation without compensation. It is actually taking place because this is in court currently and the government doesn't want to pay. So, you know, now you're starting to contradict yourselves because you said there's nothing like that going to happen. And here we have the first example with the current legislation. There was another case a couple of years ago in which they had to go to court in order to get their land back. But, you know, media didn't cover that. But yeah, here we go. So I say all of this because what I'm about to show you clearly demonstrates that everything that mainstream media and the DA specifically through Dean McPherson, what he has said is clearly blatant lies. And the reason I say that is because the Deputy President said the following.
I did say earlier that the ANC is pro-expropriation of land without compensation.
Oh, wow.
We've never deviated from that. But I said when we came
But wait now, News 24 and mainstream media is telling all of us that this Expropriation Act that was signed into law by Cyril Ramaphosa, who's part of the ANC, the president of the ANC and the president of this country, they now saying, no, don't worry about this act that that mentions no compensation. Don't worry, no, it won't. But here you have the deputy president of the country confirming that that is exactly the point of the act.
To Parliament, it was clear that engaging with other parties were not able to go that route, and therefore introduce another approach.
Which was the Expropriation Act.
Which, of course, Honorable Molefe was saying earlier that it's a sellout position. But it's working, because we are saying that there would be instances where land can be expropriated with nil compensation.
Okay.
So I did say earlier on that when it came to the amendment of Section 25, we were not able to succeed in Parliament to do that, because it needed 2/3 majority.
Exactly, and that is why the Expropriation Act of 2024 came into existence, because in there it says they can take your property for nil compensation.
But we went further as the ANC to ensure that we have a way in which we can continue to expropriate land. There are circumstances, as you correctly say, where nil compensation is accepted, and that is guiding all government institutions. So land is being expropriated, and where appropriate, and we don't have to pay, particularly because it's for a public good. That is happening.
Okay. So what is in the public good? That's what I would like to know. Because, mainstream media has now told all of us that we are bullshitters, we are lying, and that expropriation without compensation won't take place. But here you have the deputy president, Paul Mashatile, saying exactly the same thing that all of us have been saying, that the ANC government wants to implement expropriation without compensation. And mainstream media was like, no, you guys are over-exaggerating. It's never, ever going to happen. In actual fact, let me give you another example of the minister, Dean McPherson, that also denied that this was going to happen and that no compensation doesn't mean zero for some weird reason. Let's have a look.
Valdemar, here's the point, is that nil can be a form of compensation.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a minister from the DA, mind you. I know we criticize the ANC ministers quite a lot, but here we have a DA minister that just told you that no compensation does not necessarily mean zero, right? So, I mean, this minister is in charge of implementing the Expropriation Act. Even though his political party is taking themselves to court, he is still defending the Expropriation Act. It's just mind-blowing.
As I've outlined, that is absolutely true. And if anyone wants to live in this absolutist world where, the state must just pay, whatever you want, you're actually arguing for a form of extortion.
Wow, okay. So now expecting fair compensation is a form of extortion. Oh, and by the way, guys, null compensation doesn't mean zero, right? Just so we're clear, from Dean McPherson, a minister in this country that needs to oversee that. So there's a lot to unpack here. But in essence, to just make it palatable for everybody watching, for the longest period of time, since February this year, many people have said, the Expropriation Act doesn't mean that the government's going to come and take your property. That was driven by mainstream media. It was driven by the Democratic Alliance, as you can clearly see here. It was driven by the GNU government, specifically the ANC. And they've rubbished people like myself and Afriforum and Solidariteit and other content creators that spoke out against it, that said, you guys are blatantly lying. The whole intention is to start expropriating without compensation. And yet we were labeled as fearmongers, we were labeled as racists, we were labeled as fake news. But yeah, you just saw the president, the deputy president of the country, confirming that the ANC believes in expropriation without compensation and that the Expropriation Act is there for no compensation. So where's the apologies? When will News 24 apologize, not to me or the people that they called fake news, but to you as the public for getting it wrong? And also the other mainstream media outlets. And when will Dean McPherson come out and apologize for blatantly lying to South Africans and especially the DA voters? At what point is that going to happen? Look, we are used to being called fake news as content creators that go against mainstream media. We are used to it, to being called all the worst names under the sun. But we always get it right because we are factual in our reporting and looking at what the act actually says. But here we go with mainstream media fooling you, accusing us of being fake news and fearmongers. But the deputy president of the country, during a Q&A session, answered the question and says, yes, the ANC is committed to expropriation without compensation. We couldn't get it right in the 6th administration to get a 2/3 majority, but we have this Expropriation Act now that allows for expropriation for no compensation. So I'm going to be very interested to see what the argument is going to be from mainstream media now. Well, in actual fact, we know what's going to happen. They're just not going to say anything. They're not going to apologize for getting it wrong previously. Dean McPherson and the DA is not going to come out and say, listen, guys, we were wrong. What the Deputy President, Paul Mashatile, said here has really opened our eyes. That's not going to happen. But that is what you expect with mainstream media. And the latest example is just, it's now been 10 days since the whole bombshell of the prominent Afrikaner letter where report showcased that Corin Burger from Dirko was actually behind composing this letter. It's 10 days later and mainstream media, especially News 24, has not reported on it yet. So they are happy with their 2 articles that are up there that is spreading fake news about who is behind this letter, and they haven't corrected themselves. This is why I consistently say it's fine to get your average news from mainstream media, you know, like what the president said in the budget speech or, you know, the normal news. But when it comes to opinion pieces and especially things that's got to do with defending the ANC, which they proclaim they don't do, but they do all the time, that is when you need to start questioning mainstream media. I truly believe that the overwhelming majority of people know that they shouldn't trust mainstream media anymore. But it's become so insane that mainstream media is not just biased news. They are now doing the dirty work for the ANC. They are the mouthpieces of the ANC. And that is what you need to take note of. So in conclusion, once again, myself and many other people, Afriforum Solidariteit, Chris Wyatt, Ernst Roots, Ernst van Sail, Morning Shot, Joe Emilio, everybody that has spoken about it and everybody that I've left out, I apologize. But all of us were labeled the worst things and said we are fearmongers, we are race peddlers, we are fake news, but we were proven right once again. Many times that we've been proven right over the last couple of years, but yet you won't see anything from mainstream media saying, sorry guys, we were wrong, and definitely not from John Steenhuisen's biggest fan, Dean McPherson, who's the minister that needs to implement this law. Go figure. And that's pretty much all I got to say. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please be sure to smash that like button, share this video far and wide, subscribe to this channel. And if you enjoy my content and you enjoy this channel, then please consider becoming a member. You can do so by clicking the join button below. And that's all I got to say. Till later. Cheers and peace out.
You don't even know me, but every time you see me, you say, I wear my massacre. You don't even know me, but every time you see me, you say, I wear my massacre. I wear my massacre. You don't even know me, but every time you see me, you say, I wear my massacre. I wear my massacre.